Hey, I'm going to get started this evening by welcoming you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. What I do is I start out with some meditation to help you guys learn meditation. And then afterwards, I do a talk from this book titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This week is chapter 24, which is titled Misunderstandings of the Teachings of the Buddha. The Buddhist teachings have been around for over 2,500 years, and there's many misunderstandings associated with his teachings. So what I'm planning to do is after our meditation, I'm going to share the misunderstandings with you, these common ones that you'll see. There's plenty of misunderstandings, but I'm going to share these 9 common misunderstandings. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start is with some chanting to ease into the meditation. If you'd like to join with the chanting, there's chanting sheets over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself. For those of you guys that are online, you can find these chanting sheets at buddhadailywisdom.com. Click on free books and then just scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see the daily chanting sheet there. It's important to understand that with these chants that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. That during the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would recite the teachings orally, and this is how they were actually able to remember the teachings. So when we're chanting these, it's actually helping to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. Then I'm going to provide you some guidance during the meditation, essentially teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness. Then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the misunderstandings of Gotama Buddha's teachings. So if you'd like to join along, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to start with some chanting to help the mind ease into meditation. Then I'll be back with some guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Otang Mahakewanang Apivate Ami Savakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Mahakewa Otang Mahakewanhang Apivateyami Sawakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Sawakasangko Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatava Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see you here this evening. Welcome to all of you guys who are joining online as well. As I mentioned, each Sunday I come together with students here for our group learning program, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. We have a 7-month program where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this book, helping students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. I teach this at 9 a.m. and at 9 p.m. And I've been teaching this for many, many, many years, but this 9 p.m. slot here at the temple is I just started teaching, where I've been teaching online this 9 p.m. slot for quite a long time. So welcome to you guys for finding out that we actually recently just started this. So we start with meditation, but then we move into a talk to be able to help you guys to understand the path to enlightenment. And because this program is 7 months long, I've been teaching for the last essentially 7 months in this particular program. We've come towards the end of this book, where we're in chapter 24, which is titled Misunderstandings of Gotama Buddha's Teachings, because all throughout this program, I've been teaching students what are the teachings of the Buddha, helping them to understand how to move to this enlightened mental state. And I know many of you guys weren't here for this, so I'll just kind of give you guys a little bit of an understanding of some of the things that I've been teaching, and then we'll move into this topic, because there's people online who've been attending quite a bit. But I'll just share with you guys what the Buddha did 2,500 years ago is he figured out how to get to enlightenment, where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is a mental state that you can attain in this life, and it happens through training of the mind. What you're doing is you're cultivating wisdom through learning, investigating, and examining teachings, through reflecting on those teachings to independently verify if they're true or false, and then you're practicing the teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life. The Buddha discovered these 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind, and he discovered the tools and the techniques of how to uproot these out of the mind. And when you eliminate them out of the mind's going to experience more and more qualities of enlightenment. There's that peace, calmness, serenity, contentedness, and joy, where the mind no longer experiences feelings like anger, anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. When you train your mind and you uproot these pollutions, not only have you eliminated your discontentedness, but your mind will be performing optimally. You'll notice that it has focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because with those pollutions in the mind, it's very muddled and kind of unconcentrated and unfocused. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming, because in the unenlightened state, there's a certain amount of bitterness and harshness and hostility in the mind. Oftentimes people think that that's coming from other people, but it's actually coming from your own mind. That's why you can actually eliminate it. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you won't be bitter and harsh and hostile to people any longer. And you'll notice that your relationships are really improving because you're not damaging your relationships in that way. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even experience a bad mood any longer. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't about believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. It's also not rules and commandments of things that you're required to do or certain things that you are required to believe or things like this. Instead, he's teaching you about the world around you. And as you're cultivating this wisdom, you can navigate the world more peacefully. So this meditation that we just did, this is training your mind to uproot certain unwholesome qualities, but also to cultivate certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So this is what the Buddha taught over 2,500 years ago. But since his lifetime, things have changed. People have changed his teachings. And he talked about how this was going to occur. And he encouraged people not to do this. He explained the danger in this, that if you changed his teachings, it would cause harm to you and countless other people. Because what a Buddha does is they figure out how to get to enlightenment without any teachers or any guides. They figure out how to get to enlightenment on their own. Then they spend the rest of their life dedicated to sharing those teachings, helping countless people get to enlightenment during their lifetime. And then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So if you change the teachings of a Buddha, it's actually causing harm to you because you're not going to be able to actually get to enlightenment, and it's going to cause harm to others if you end up sharing these teachings. One of the very best ways to experience this peace and joy is through deeply investigating the teachings. One of the very best things that could ever happen for you in life is to be able to actually get to enlightenment. But it's not something that's mystical or magical. It's not that you snap your fingers and get to this. Oftentimes people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. It was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. It took him 6 years to get to enlightenment. From the age of 29 to the age of 35, he trained his mind to get to this enlightened mental state. But since his death over 2,500 years ago, people have either inadvertently changed his teachings or they've overtly changed his teachings, not realizing the harm that they're causing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you 9 individual misunderstandings that you're going to see in the world related to the teachings of the Buddha, because that's going to actually help you to be able to understand what did he actually teach. In order to explain this to you, I'm going to first share with you these 3 traditions or 3 schools that now exist in the world, so you'll understand how all of this occurred. When the Buddha died, they actually didn't have his teachings documented. During his lifetime, it was all oral, that he spoke orally, and that's how people learned his teachings. The technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. It existed in China, but it didn't exist in where we refer to as Nepal or Northeast India. This is where the Buddha was. That the technology to write things down didn't exist 2,500 years ago in that region of the world. So that's how chanting came about in the tradition of the teachings of the Buddha, is they used it to commit their teachings to memory, that the Buddha would speak, and then every 2 weeks the students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. But shortly after his death, the technology made its way to that region of the world and they started documenting his teachings. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you won't forget the teachings that it took for you to get to enlightenment. It's kind of like upgrading your operating system in your mind. So by the time the Buddha died, there were countless people that had gotten to enlightenment. 500 of them got together and they started documenting his teachings. We refer to this as the Pali Canon. This is the 45 volumes of books that are about this thick that are the original source teachings of the Buddha. This is the largest, most complete collection that we have of the Buddha's teachings. So since that time, these teachings have been handed down from person to person to person. Not everything that the Buddha taught is actually in the Pali Canon. but also not everything that is in the Pali Canon was taught by the Buddha as well. It would be naive of us to think that a document that started 2,500 years ago is exactly the same document today as it was 2,500 years ago. There's been some subtle changes. And the way that you cut through that to be able to see the truth for yourself is you don't believe any of the teachings. You can learn, investigate, and examine them. You can reflect on them to independently verify if his teachings are true or false, and then you can practice his teachings and see the truth for yourself as it's working to create more peace and joy in your mind. So since the lifetime of the Buddha and shortly after, when they started documenting his teachings, there was a core group of people that were closely learning with the Buddha, and they're the ones who documented the teachings. And ultimately what this becomes known as is Theravada Buddhism, or some people refer to it as early Buddhism. The word Theravada Buddhism means the teachings of the elders. So the people think that this is the most original teachings, closest to what the Buddha was teaching during his lifetime. In this tradition, they look to the Pali Canon, those original source teachings, as being the words of the Buddha. And this is what's actually going to lead to your enlightenment. And this tradition is, as I mentioned, considered to be the closest to what the Buddha was teaching during his lifetime. About 500 years after his death, there's another tradition that spawns, right? Because when a Buddha is alive, there's going to be a certain core group of people that are learning with him, but then there's people on the outer fringes that aren't really learning really closely, and they started splintering off and kind of creating their own things. So by about 500 years after the death of the Buddha, this Mahayana Buddhism was created. And this introduces a bunch of rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. The Buddha never actually taught any of those kinds of things. Everything that the Buddha taught is all about training of the mind. So as soon as you see rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer associated with the teachings of the Buddha, you know that that isn't actually the teachings of the Buddha. And in this tradition, there's those types of things. Then there's the Vajrayana tradition. The Vajrayana tradition comes about 1,000 years after the death of the Buddha, and you will see countless rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. You will even see worship of deities and things of this nature, right? So you can know that this is very far, far, far away from what the Buddha actually taught. Now, this Theravada tradition, this is primarily hosted in places like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, southern Vietnam. These are all places that really focus on Theravada Buddhism, but it's really been spread all throughout the world. Then Mahayana Buddhism, you'll see this largely in places like China, but again, it's been spread all throughout the world. And then the Vajrayana tradition, you're going to see this in Tibet. And again, it's been spread all throughout the world, right? So these different traditions have been spread all throughout the world. But these are the kind of the focal points. Now, some people refer to the Theravada tradition, they call it the lesser vehicle or Hinayana. This is a way to kind of degrade and diminish these teachings. And then some people will refer to the Mahayana Buddhism as the greater vehicle, or they will refer to Vajrayana Buddhism as the lightning fast vehicle. Well, if you're referring to enlightenment in this way, someone has not understood what enlightenment is. You're not trying to hurry up and get to enlightenment. If you're chasing after enlightenment, you'll never actually get to it. So these are misunderstandings in and of themselves about how people are referring to these. And now while people refer to these as Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, and Vajrayana Buddhism, there was only one Buddha. So there can only be one Buddhism, right? There can't be three different Buddhisms. And by the way, off of each one of these major schools and these major traditions, there's countless branches. There's probably 200, 300, 400 different branches off of each one of these, right? So this is not, in a lot of cases, what the Buddha was actually teaching. He described during his lifetime 500-year cycles that his teachings would go through. And he predicted this. And we actually see that this is actually what occurred. He talked about the first 500 years after his death, that people would be very strong in their union, and there would be a lot of people getting to enlightenment shortly after his death, the first 500 years, because his teachings would be quite strong. The second 500 years, he talked about how people would be very good in meditation and be dedicating a lot of time and effort towards meditation. Then he talked about the the third 500 years that scholars would be very interested in what it is that he was teaching, and they would start writing things about him and be investigating his teachings. And that's what we see. That's where we see people that were scholarly, that were very interested in his teachings during that time frame. The fourth 500-year cycle, he described that people would be very interested in practicing generosity towards his teachings and to see his teachings continue in the world. That was essentially 500 to 1,000 years ago, that fourth cycle. And this is where we see the vast majority of these temples being built in Thailand, where people were donating land, donating resources. Between 500 to 1,000 years ago is when all these temples were being constructed and built. So you'll see that fourth 500-year cycle, there was a lot of generosity being practiced towards his teachings. And then the last 500-year cycle, which we just actually ended in 2017, he said that people would be utterly confused about his teachings, and they would be misunderstanding what it is that he actually taught, that people would be fighting and arguing and bickering about what it was that he actually taught. And we just ended this cycle in 2017 because he died in the year 483. He lived in 563 BCE, and then he died in 483. So if you do the math, it takes us up to about the year 2017. So he described that at this point in human history, we would be at a low point where essentially people would be vastly misunderstanding his teachings. There'd be calamity in the world and lots of difficulties and struggles in the world, and we'd be at this low point. So that's exactly why we see so many misunderstandings, because of this fracturing in the community, because not everybody even studies the original teachings, because it's only this branch of teachings, this school, that actually considers the Pali Canon to be the original source teachings. These other traditions don't even study the original teachings from the Pali Canon. And even in this tradition of Theravada Buddhism, a lot of these people don't study the original teachings either, because they're in 45 volumes of books that are this thick. Here in Thailand, it would cost the average Thai person about 3 months of their salary to be able to have a version of this. You probably don't own any book collections worth 3 months of your salary, right? So the average Thai person, the average temple, doesn't actually have access to these. But what we've done is we've consolidated it into 13 books, and then we give it away for free so that people can get access to it. You can download it from the internet. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing costs, or you can order it on Amazon if your country has access to Amazon. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that actually shares the original words of the Buddha. So if you do the math, that's less than 1%. So out of 500 million people who consider what they're doing to be Buddhist, there's a very, 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 very small fraction of these people that are actually studying with his original teachings. And if you're coming from like a Christian background or maybe a Muslim background or something like that, where there's a Quran or the Bible, you can't even fathom people, considering themselves Buddhist if they're not studying the original words of the Buddha. But remember, it started out as an oral tradition. And an oral tradition is very easy to change because people's memories, they don't have maybe really solid memories. Like if we sat in a circle and I whispered to you, the yellow tiger jumped over the orange fence and then fell in a green pond, by the time it went around, it would probably be like the gray elephant broke through the brown fence and, stumbled on the street or something like that, right? It would change by the time it goes around. And that would just be in like 3 minutes to get that around. If you can imagine 2,500 years of that, of oral tradition. So this is why we see so many misunderstandings in the world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through 9 of the most common misunderstandings and helping you to understand the true teachings of what the Buddha actually taught based on his original words. And a lot of these misunderstandings that I'm going to share with you are from the Theravada tradition, because that's what is actually practiced here in Thailand. And even though there's misunderstandings in this tradition, I would say that the Thai people are probably practicing the teachings closest than any other population in the entire world, because you see them deeply dedicated and devoted to learning and growing and developing to a certain degree. It's kind of been embedded in their culture. But still, even within this area and in this population of people, there's misunderstandings. So I'll start with these first 3. You might have seen these if you've been visiting temples. The first one is called a pouring water ceremony. This is where if you make an offering to an ordained practitioner and you give them a gift of like food, clothing, shelter, medical care, financial support or something, they might actually gesture towards this little urn of water, and they will chant while you pour out this water. And what the thinking is that whatever benefit you experienced by making that offering, that you're now transferring it, that benefit, to your dead relatives. Okay. It's a nice, interesting thought. Oh, it's so warm. We could help our dead relatives. But it's just not what the Buddha taught, and it's not physically possible. If you understand the benefit of generosity and why the Buddha taught generosity, it's to enhance the quality of your mind. Because if your mind is having craving, desire, attachment, which every unenlightened mind has, where it's holding on and it's craving permanence, one of the things that the Buddha taught to train your mind to let that go is generosity. When you're giving and sharing with the people around you, it's training your mind to let go, because that's what's causing the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all these other things, is that the mind's holding on and craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. So in addition to meditation and other teachings, he teaches to practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing with people. So it's enhancing the quality of your mind to practice generosity. So it's impossible for you to transfer that benefit to somebody else. So while it's a really warm thought, a really kind thought, it's just not true reality of the way things truly work. The Buddha taught the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result, that it's your decisions that lead to any particular result. And you can't transfer that to somebody else. It's not possible. So if you see this, in Thai we refer to this as Gotama. This is not what the Buddha actually taught. Whether you choose to do these kinds of things or not, that's a choice for each individual person to make. But these types of things that I'm going to be sharing with you, they were also going on during the lifetime of the Buddha, and he actually talks about them, and he talks about how he doesn't do them. Like, for example, this next one, we might refer to this as blessed water, but in Thai they call it namon. What this is that an ordained practitioner, during an event, they will take a bowl of water and they will chant over this water, and they will drip wax into the water. And then at some point during the event, they will dip this little brush in there and they will sprinkle it on everybody. Right? And the thought is that this is somehow going to be beneficial for you. Well, you can't take just normal average water and somebody have the power to change this water and turn it into some kind of holy water or blessed water. Think about how much ego that would take out of an individual to sit here and think that I can chant over this water and drip wax into it from a candle, and somehow I've just changed this water and made it special water, and now I'm going to sprinkle it on you, and somehow your life is going to get better. Right? This was going on during the lifetime of the Buddha too. And he was explaining that he doesn't do this because it promotes what's called wrong view. The Buddhist teachings are based in what's called right view. What right view is multiple things, but the core of this is to understand that these feelings that you have in your mind, they're being caused by your own mind itself. It's a teaching called the Four Noble Truths, where we walk you through in about 45 minutes, helping you to be able to see very clearly that it's your own mind that's causing the feelings that you're experiencing, that it's not the outside world. So as soon as somebody's sprinkling water on you, and now your life is supposed to get better from that, you're not understanding true reality or right view of how the world truly works, that you experience certain things in your life based on decisions that you make. If you thought that someone could sprinkle some water on you and your life was going to miraculously get better, you're not understanding that what you're experiencing in life is based on the decisions that you're making. So for example, if you went to work and you were bitter and harsh and hostile to your coworkers, and you were disrespectful to your boss, and you weren't paying attention to your work, and you were delivering low quality work to your boss, well, there's no amount of water that I could sprinkle on you that's going to change that and make that any better for you. You're going to need to cultivate wisdom and make different decisions, and then you will experience different results. This water isn't going to help you. Or say you're having difficulties in your relationship with your parents or your life partner, with your children, and you're having difficulties in those relationships. There's no amount of water that I can sprinkle on you that's going to change that for you. You're going to need to cultivate wisdom and make different decisions in those those relationships, and now you'll experience improved results in your day-to-day life. So this is a huge misunderstanding of the teachings of the Buddha. Some people do this, they'll sprinkle it on a person, or maybe if you bought a new house, they might sprinkle it around your house, or things. If you buy a brand new car, they might sprinkle it on your car, thinking that this is going to help you to drive safer, right? This is all misunderstandings of the natural law of cause and effect, or the natural law of karma. Then sometimes there's this sacred thread that people get when they go visit an ordained practitioner or a teacher. They will tie it on your wrist. This actually comes from animism. Prior to Buddhism coming into Thailand, they were practicing animism, where they're worshiping inanimate objects. This is why you see them wrapping trees, or, they think that the tree has a spirit, the mountain has a spirit, the water has a spirit. Again, really warm and really lovely thoughts to think that we need to respect these things, right? We need to respect the trees. We need to respect the water. We need to take care of these things. But once you start going to as far as worshiping a tree and thinking that somehow it has a spirit, and if you wrap this tree, it's somehow going to produce something beneficial for you, this is a misunderstanding of how the world truly works. So what has happened is now they're wrapping people's wrists, thinking that that's somehow going to be beneficial for you, right? So we might think that when Buddhism came into Thailand, which it came into Thailand about 800 to 1200 years ago, that maybe there was a countrywide announcement that someone said, hey, on Monday morning, we're going to be up and running on Buddhism. Delete everything that you've been doing for the last several centuries and all your ancestors have been teaching you, and we're going to be up and running on this clean strand of Buddhism. That's not how it worked, right? So they just kind of gradually merged everything together over time. So that's why we see animism and Buddhism, even Hinduism and different things here in Thailand are kind of all merged together. But from the outside looking in, you can see like, oh, this is Buddhism, this is Hinduism, this is animism, this is Thai folk traditions over here. You can see it very clearly of what are the teachings of the Buddha. So this wrapping of the wrist with a string, people think that this is like a sacred thread. In Thai, we call it sai sin. And this is not going to produce beneficial results in your day-to-day life. Maybe it reminds you of the conversation that you had with the monk, right? And maybe that wisdom that you learned during the conversation of the monk, that's what's going to help you, is the wisdom that you learn. And now you can use that wisdom to make better decisions in your life, and now you'll experience improved results. But just wrapping the wrist with a string by itself isn't going to change anything about your life. So these are misunderstandings as part of what you'll see here in Thailand. You'll see it in other places too. It's not just Thailand that they're practicing these kinds of things. So I'm going to be pausing at each one of these at the end of each three and see if you guys have questions. So if you guys have questions, you can let me know. We have microphones in the white bowl there. If you could just get a microphone and press the gray button, you'll see the lights come on, and you can just hold it up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then you can keep these with you because you might have more than one question, or someone else might have a question. And then if you could turn it off when you're not using it, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers. And for anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically, unmute your microphone, and ask any questions that way. So yes, sir, you have a question?
So the Buddha, he was coming from a Hindu tradition, is that correct, originally?
He grew up in that background. There was that background, and they were talking about things like enlightenment. They were doing things like meditation. They were talking about the natural law of karma, or what they would refer to as karma in the Sanskrit language, but the same thing. So he was exposed to these things, but it wasn't the same thing that he was actually teaching. He brought a level of clarity to it that didn't exist prior to him.
And do we know from his teachings how much of Hinduism he actually didn't agree with, or was what he was teaching, could that just be a extra stuff on top of what everybody around him already kind of believed? Like, how much should we expect that he was saying start again, as you said?
Yeah, Buddhism and Hinduism are completely different. You'll see some commonalities, just like you'll see commonalities between Christianity and Buddhism, or even Muslim teachings and Buddhism. You can see some commonalities because the Buddha is teaching about these natural laws. And he's delivering the entire package to be able to help you understand it with clarity, and you can independently verify his teachings. In Hinduism, they're essentially worshiping gods. You'll see a lot of rituals and ceremonies that were Brahmin in place, which we would probably refer to as a Hindu priest. And these individuals were thought to be holy, and they were born into this family, and now they're going to do rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. And us commoners were taught that we can improve our life. We needed to go to the Brahmin, and they were going to do rituals and ceremonies for us, and then that was going to make our life better. And you needed to pay for this service. And the Buddha knew that that wasn't true. So the Buddhist teachings are vastly different than Hinduism, but you're going to see some common themes, things like they'll talk about enlightenment, or they might talk about the natural law of karma, where we talk about as karma, but it's essentially the same thing. They might even be doing meditation and things like this. But it's vastly different when you start pulling back the covers, even the first layer, when you start looking at it. It's very different. And it's not about what the Buddha agreed with or disagreed with. It's about what he was able to independently verify. And you're able to independently verify his teachings and see the truth for yourself. There's no other teachings on the face of the earth that I've ever seen that has that ability, that you can learn it intellectually. You can reflect on it to verify it, and then you can practice it and see the truth for yourself. And then as your mind is awakening, you'll see in situations where you were once angry and frustrated and agitated that your mind's not doing that any longer. And you'll have the proof that these teachings are actually working to improve the condition of your mind, which is very different than other types of traditions that are out there in the world. Okay, let me see if we have any questions online here. All right, I don't see any questions here online. So let's go to the next three. Here, I'm going to share with you that sometimes ordained practitioners study with me, either in person or online. So in the book, I put this section about ordained practitioners, but you guys can learn from this as well. The Buddha referred to these individuals as bhikkhus. These were male ordained practitioners. And bhikkhunis, he referred to, these are the female ordained practitioners. You don't see too many female ordained practitioners here in Thailand. There's a reason for that, but there are female ordained practitioners here. But I'm just referring to these individuals as ordained practitioners. So ordained practitioners are oftentimes taught that they are above us, that we are below them, and they are a better being than us, and then they might be taught to look down on us. So if you why to an ordained practitioner to show your respect, they will typically not why back to you because they think that they're better than you. That's what they've been taught. This isn't what the Buddha taught, but this is what they're being taught today, right? So I teach this in this particular book to help ordained practitioners understand that the Buddha never taught that. That is a misunderstanding. And that it would be very wise as an ordained practitioner or as a teacher to have respect and gratitude for all the people who come to learn with you, because it's the people that are actually supporting us. It's the students who choose to clean the classroom or purchase a carpet or purchase a microphone or something like this. This is all coming from the student community. And it would be unwise for a teacher or for an ordained practitioner to look down on their students and think that they are better than their students. The Buddha taught that everybody is equal, and that's part of getting to enlightenment. If there's conceit in the mind where somebody thinks they're above somebody and look down on them, that individual is not enlightened. Or if you're putting yourself below somebody and you're looking up to them with such awe and admiration, your mind's oftentimes uncalm or unsettled around this person. Like if you go talk to your boss, if your mind's all shaken up in that situation, that's because you're putting yourself below your boss, thinking that they're above you. So the Buddha never taught that ordained practitioners or teachers are above people. In fact, he was a prince destined to become a king, and he entered into this life through homelessness, and he referred to it as the lowest form of livelihood that exists. So today, people are propping up ordained practitioners really high. Essentially, ordained practitioners have become the Brahmin, the individuals who are being paid to do rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayers. But the Buddha never taught that kind of stuff. So as an ordained practitioner, it would be wise to be humble and down to earth and not allow the conceit to take over, thinking that you're better than other people. As a household practitioner, if you interact with an ordained practitioner and you why them, as I mentioned, understand they're not going to why back to you. But if you're going to why somebody, and this is a way of showing respect or appreciation or saying thank you, you would like to be able to do that without any expectation of anything in return. If you're showing respect because you want respect back, then that means you're not being respectful based in a wise decision. You need to be respectful based in your own wise decisions because you know it's wise to be respectful to people. And if someone else chooses to not be respectful, that's their decision and that's affecting them in an unwholesome way. But for you, it would be wise for you to understand that it's wise to why people. So when I why ordained practitioners, 99.99999% of the time, they don't why back. But I'm not whying them because I want something from them. I'm whying them because I know it's wise to be respectful and polite and kind and friendly to people. So that's why I why ordained practitioners. But for ordained practitioners, it would be wise for them to understand that they aren't above household practitioners. In fact, the Buddha describes this in his teachings. Here's just one place where he's talking about how this gain honor and praise can obsess the mind and hinder you from getting to enlightenment. It's titled, Gain, Honor, and Praise Are an Obstacle Even for an Arahant. An Arahant is an enlightened being. This is how they would refer to an enlightened being during the lifetime of the Buddha. He says, monks, gain, honor, and praise, I say, are an obstacle, even for a monk who is an Arahant, one with taints destroyed. When this was said, the Venerable Ananda, who's a very close student of the Buddha, asked the master teacher Gotama, why, Venerable Sir, are gain, honor, and praise an obstacle, even for a monk with taints destroyed? So taints are the pollutions in the mind. So if you've eliminated the pollutions, if you've destroyed the pollutions, your mind is enlightened. And Ananda is rightfully confused here. He's like, hold on a second. If someone's enlightened, why would gain, honor, and praise be an obstacle for them? Because once you get to enlightenment, you don't have struggles and difficulties anymore. Your life is completely at ease. Your mind is completely peaceful and joyful. So Ananda's like, hold on a second. Why is gain, honor, and praise such an obstacle for people who've gotten to enlightenment? The Buddha says, I do not say, Ananda, that gain, honor, and praise are an obstacle to his unshakable liberation of mind. That's what the enlightened mind is experiencing. It's unshakable. It's steady. It's stable. It's unshakable. He said, I don't say that gain, honor, and praise are an obstacle to his unshakable liberation of mind, but I say they are an obstacle to his attainment of those peaceful dwellings in this very life, which are achieved by one who resides diligent, dedicated, and determined. So once someone's enlightened, if they're experiencing praise, their mind's not going to be boastful and conceited and egotistical. But on the way to enlightenment, it can be quite challenging for you because on your way to enlightenment, you're becoming more friendly, more loving, more kind, more polite, more respectful, and you're able to do this with everybody. Right now, you probably can't do that. There's probably certain people in your life that you're impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful to, right? But by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to everybody. So as your mind's moving closer and closer to this enlightened mental state, gradually, you're going to start getting all this praise from people. Wow, you're so kind, you're so loving, you're so compassionate, you're so respectful, you're so generous. You're going to be hearing all this stuff. And if you allow it to obsess your mind and get conceited, it's going to hinder you from attaining enlightenment because now you're getting conceited. And that's what the Buddha talks about here. He says, so dreadful, Ananda, are gain, honor, and praise, so bitter, vile, and obstructive to achieving the unsurpassed security from bondage or enlightenment. Therefore, Ananda, you should train yourselves thus. We will abandon the arisen gain, honor, and praise, and we will not let the arisen gain, honor, and praise persist, obsessing our mind. Thus should you train yourselves. So he's explaining to his close student Ananda that when people are praising you, don't allow your mind to become conceited and boastful and arrogant. Because when you start functioning that way around people, they're going to tend to push you aside. Right? Because they're not interested in being around that. You'll start talking down to people and they'll start pushing you aside. So that's what the Buddha is helping you to be able to understand as part of this teaching. Here's another one. It's titled, This Spiritual Life is Not Lived for the Sake of Deceiving People. Monks, this spiritual life is not lived for the sake of deceiving people in persuading them, nor for the benefit of gain, honor, and praise, nor for the benefit of winning in debates, nor with the thought, let the people know me thus, but rather this spiritual life is lived for the sake of restraint, abandoning, freedom from strong feelings, and elimination. So this is the actual goal of his teachings, is to get to this point where the mind's completely peaceful and joyful. The freedom from strong feelings, the freedom from the anger and the frustration and the guilt and the shame and the fear, the stress, anxiety, and all those other things. The goal of his teachings is not to get this gain, honor, and praise. So if someone's becoming ordained, because nowadays people are propping up ordained practitioners to be so high, and those people might be thinking themselves that they're so high and above these other people, now you're not actually becoming ordained for the purposes that the Buddha is teaching you. The Buddha is teaching you to become ordained in order to get to enlightenment. But you can get to enlightenment from the household life too. You don't have to be ordained in order to get to the enlightened mental state. So these are just some teachings to help ordained practitioners, but also for you guys when you interact with ordained practitioners, that you understand that they're not going to why you back. And that's okay. That's their practice. You're interested in making sure you practice the wise way, which is to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody that you encounter. But you'll find that to be challenging because you have pollution in the mind that you haven't uprooted out of the mind yet. There's core central teachings that the Buddha shares with you of how to actually do that. And that's what I've been sharing all throughout this program for the students that have been learning all the way through the program. And by the way, we're restarting this on January 4th, and you can attend here in Chiang Mai, but you can also attend anywhere in the world because we live stream these programs, and they're also recorded. So if you can't make the live classes, either 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. on Sundays and Wednesdays, you can actually watch the recordings as well. Sometimes people think that chanting or mantras have some kind of mystical or magical powers. You might actually go visit a temple and they're like, come here. We've got this special chant. It's only our temple that knows this. And if you chant this chant, you're going to get an extra long life. Right? Or here, chant this chant. If you chant this chant, your boyfriend or your girlfriend is going to come back to you, right? Or chant this chant, you're going to get rich and wealthy, right? This isn't actually true. There's nothing like that exists. I teach you guys don't believe others, but I teach people don't believe me either. Don't believe me. Look for the truth for yourself. So if you ever go somewhere and they're like, hey, chant this chant, you're going to get an extra long life if you chant this chant. Well, don't believe them, but don't believe me either. Look around the temple. Do you see people that are 150, 200, 300 years old? If so, then there's some truth to this. But if not, then you know that this is just a belief that they're having. It's not actually true. Or here's another way to think about this. If there was some chant that you could chant that would instantly get your boyfriend or girlfriend back, or would instantly make you wealthy, and the Buddha created this 2,500 years ago, don't you think that would have spread like wildfire by now? I mean, think about it. You go have a good meal at a restaurant. How many people do you tell, right? 3, 4, 5, 10 different people. There's been 2,500 years for this to spread throughout the world. Everybody would know that chant by now, right? Because it would be such a magical thing. Wow, we can chant this chant and instantly get rich and wealthy. Not that that's what the Buddha is teaching you to do, but of course, people aspire for that kind of thing. Or chant this chant, your boyfriend or girlfriend is going to come back to you. Maybe you don't want your boyfriend or girlfriend back, but some people do. So they might actually chant this chant to try to get this person back. This isn't the way the world works. During the lifetime of the Buddha, the origins of chanting is he used it as a learning tool, as a learning device to help his students commit the teachings to memory, because everything he taught was oral. So you needed to chant in order to commit the teachings to memory so that you could then practice the teachings. That's how chanting came about, through the teachings of the Buddha. Today, we don't need to use chanting in order to get to enlightenment because we have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this to be able to study. Today, we use chanting as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself, because it builds awareness of the mind and awareness of the breath as you're easing into the meditation. You can actually get more benefit out of your meditation. A lot of people have Buddha statues. You've probably seen tons of Buddha statues around Thailand as you guys have been traveling. It's important to note that the Buddha never taught anybody to make a statue out of him. In fact, the statues that you see, more likely than not, don't even represent what the Buddha looked like during his life. The Buddha looked like this during his life. Remember, he was born in what we refer to as Nepal, and he taught in Northeast India. So he looked like a person from that region of the world. But if you go to China and you look at Buddha statues, he looks Chinese. If you look at statues from Japan, he looks Japanese. And some people think that the statues here, he looks quite Thai. And then you see these kind of ornate crowns on his head, or these very flamboyant and decorative clothing. He didn't wear that kind of thing during his lifetime. It's very clear in his teachings that he wore rag robes, just like this, and that he shaved his hair. But the people that started making statues of him, they started doing that about 500 years after his death. That those people came in contact with the people in Greece, and they were making statues of their gods, and they were learning statue making from the Greek people. And they were like, hey, who do we have to make a statue out of? And they were like, let's make a statue out of the Buddha. Well, 500 years after his death, nobody lived during his lifetime. They didn't even know what he looked like. So they just started making statues of whatever they thought that he looked like. This particular artwork was created by looking at his original teachings, because in his original teachings, they actually describe what he looks like. And this is what was created based on that representation of what he actually looked like. So these Buddha statues, it doesn't represent what he looks like. He never taught people to actually make statues of him. But nowadays, there's people who think the spirit of the Buddha is inside these statues. And you will see people praying to these statues. You'll see people feeding these statues, giving these statues glasses of water. You'll see people bathing these statues. Again, very nice thought, but it's just not true reality. The Buddha actually didn't teach whether there is a spirit or there isn't a spirit. And he didn't teach that his spirit is inside of those statues. And he didn't teach that he's physically sitting there. That's oftentimes what people think when they see these statues. They think the Buddha is physically sitting there. And that's why they feed this statue, because they think that he's physically sitting there. And they will pray to these statues. That's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha lived. He's dead. He's never coming back. There's no way for him to help you at this point. He did everything he needed to do during his life to be able to help you, is by sharing his teachings. And by you learning and practicing his teachings, that's what's going to help you. There's no ability to pray to the Buddha and then he's going to change something for you. So this is a big misunderstanding that you will see around statues of the Buddha. Whether someone chooses to have a statue of him or not, it's up to them. I'm not here to convince anybody to do anything at all. I'm just helping you to be able to see the misunderstandings. Because sometimes people have statues of the Buddha and they say it helps them to remember to meditate whenever they see that statue, or it helps them to remember to be more kind and loving to their friends and family. Wonderful. It's a beautiful piece of art. You know, these statues are so beautiful, and such amazing amount of craftsmanship went into creating them. And maybe somebody would like to have one of those. That's a choice for each individual to make. But once you start diving into thinking that there's a spirit in there and you're feeding it and you're praying to it and you're bathing it and things like this is the misunderstandings that are going to take you down the wrong path, and the mind's going to be misled into what it really takes to get to enlightenment. So do you guys have any questions on any of these three? No questions? Okay. I don't see any questions online either. So let's go to the next three. These are the last three. So the first one here, or the seventh one, is that sometimes people refer to the Buddha as a god or an avatar or a lord. The Buddha never referred to himself that way. And it would be really unwise for us to refer to him in any other way than what he referred to himself as. He referred to himself as using the word Tathagata. This word Tathagata, it means the one who's discovered the truth, or the one who shares the truth. That's how he typically referred to himself. But he was a human being. He came into the world through the womb of a woman. That's a human being, right? A god doesn't come into the world through the womb of a human being. So while people refer to him as a god or an avatar or a lord, I would suggest to you that it's unwise to do so, because it misrepresents this individual as a human being, as a teacher. And sometimes people prop this individual up so high, they think, oh, only he can get to enlightenment. I'm more interested in humanizing a Buddha so that you can see that he's human just like you and I. He had a personality just like you and I. I guarantee you that he farted. I guarantee you that he picked his nose, right? I guarantee you these kinds of things. His body probably smelled, right? Just like every other human being. If we're out in the sun and we're sweating, the body's going to smell, right? He was a human being just like you and me. So it's important to humanize him so that you can see that, yes, he got to enlightenment as a human being, and you can too. Because as soon as we start propping somebody up so high like this, now there's this pecking order in the mind that is going to degrade your ability to think of everybody as equal. And you're going to start thinking that perhaps he can get to enlightenment, but you can't. And I'm here to share with you that you absolutely can get to enlightenment. There's no difference about how your mind functions to be able to get to enlightenment than a Buddha. There's only one thing that makes a Buddha's mind unique and different. But other than that, you can surely get to enlightenment just like an actual Buddha. Now, this word Lord, oftentimes you'll hear people refer to the Buddha as Lord Buddha. If you go look up this word Lord, it means someone or something having power, authority, or influence, a master or ruler. Or it means act in a superior and domineering manner towards someone. So if we assign this word Lord to the Buddha, we're assigning those qualities to him. And if you know the teachings of the Buddha, his teachings are exactly opposite of this, right? He didn't teach in a domineering and controlling way. He didn't teach that he's above people and looking down on people. So it's, in my opinion, unwise to use this word Lord because he didn't refer to himself that way. And there's some people in the world who grew up Christian and they think about Jesus Christ as being the only Lord and Savior. And they're not interested in getting involved with any other Lord. So these teachings of the Buddha will absolutely lead to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful and joyful. I know this with 100% certainty. And there's billions of people out there that think about Jesus Christ as being the only Lord and Savior. So if we refer to the Buddha as Lord Buddha, these individuals will never even give the teachings of the Buddha time of day to be able to look at them and be able to discover for themselves that, oh my gosh, these teachings are leading to a more peaceful and joyful life. It's kind of blocking them out of the teachings. So I don't suggest that people use the word Lord in reference to the Buddha because it assigns these qualities to him and it kind of hinders these other people from being able to approach the teachings of the Buddha in a way that they could actually get benefit from them and see real improvements in their day-to-day life. Then sometimes people talk about blessings related to the teachings of the Buddha. They might say, oh, may the Buddha bless you, or may the triple gem bless you. If you understand what a blessing is, if you look this up in a dictionary, what it means is God's favor and protection, a prayer asking for God's favor or protection. If you know the teachings of the Buddha, that's not what he actually taught. He never taught these kinds of things to ask for God's protection for any particular thing. The way that you get protection is through your own decisions. When you cultivate wisdom in your mind and you're making wise decisions, that is what will protect you. Because if you didn't have the wisdom, let's just say, for example, you walked up to someone and punched them in the face, right? That's a cause and effect. You punch someone, so they're probably going to punch you back. Or they might pull out a knife or a gun, or their family or friends might attack you. It doesn't matter how much somebody has blessed you, that if you make unwise decisions, you're going to experience unwholesome results in your day-to-day life. So the Buddha never taught about blessings or any of these kinds of things, but you'll hear people saying those kinds of things. So then you'll know that these are misunderstandings. And then the last one here is sometimes people will share with you that you are a Buddha. Or they say that you have Buddha nature, or they will say when you reach enlightenment, you have reached Buddhahood. This is what people are saying today, but this isn't what the Buddha actually taught. He explained how rare it is for a Buddha to exist in the world. There's 3 primary criteria of what make a Buddha a Buddha. The first one is that they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. The second one is that they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. And the Buddha explains how rare this is in the world. The last one that the world's currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. So the people who are saying that everybody is a Buddha, or you have Buddha nature, or you have Buddhahood, this is actually a misunderstanding of his teachings. And I have his words here to be able to help you see this. This is a teaching called the rare appearance of 5 treasures. He's talking to his student. He says, the appearance of 5 treasures is rare in the world. What 5? The appearance of a Tathagata, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, is rare in the world. That's a Buddha. A Tathagata is a Buddha. A perfectly enlightened one is a Buddha. So he's saying here that it's very rare in the world. Well, if everybody was a Buddha, that's not rare, right? So you can see it through his own words, and this is actually the reference back to the original source teachings. And there's other things here that he's talking about that is rare as well, but I just share this with you because it helps to illustrate this important point that not everybody is a Buddha. A Buddha is very rare and unique in the world. You can get to enlightenment, but you're going to need teachers, you're going to need guides, you're going to need people to help you along the way. A teacher is essentially like a tour guide. You are your own independent practitioner. You're not a devotee, you're not a follower, you're not any of those kinds of things. You are your own independent practitioner, seeking wisdom and looking for wisdom. And a teacher is like a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and understand, and we're giving you the resources to be able to do that. And then we're helping you as you seek guidance and ask for help. But it's each individual practitioner that's doing that work, right? So you're going to need teachers and guides along the way. You're not going to be able to figure this out on your own, because there's one quality of a Buddha that allows them to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides, that they have a deep, profound memory. An average human being, they have a certain capacity in their mind, like a hard drive. They might have 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte. This is why that in the last 5 or 10 years, you can pretty much remember the things that you were involved in. But if you think back to your childhood, you just kind of have spotty memories because you've had to delete your old files in order to store new files because you have a limited capacity, right? That's why that occurs, that you just have spotty memories about your past. But an individual who's going to become a Buddha, even in the unenlightened state, they have a deep, profound memory. They have an unlimited capacity to remember countless details about their current life, but their previous lives as well. And they accumulate all this wisdom into their last life to be able to apply it, to be able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. This is a very unique type of individual that exists in the world. So they would meet those 3 criteria. So this is a big misunderstanding that everybody is a Buddha or has Buddha nature, or once you get to enlightenment, you have reached Buddhahood. This isn't something that the Buddha actually taught. So yes, if you have questions, feel free to let me know. There's a microphone right there. And for those of you guys online, you can let me know if you guys have questions. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like.
Hi, everybody. I'm new here. I just make a temple tour today, and they told me the exact opposite, that everybody could be a Buddha, but it's not possible to be enlightened while the Buddha isn't on this earth.
This is not true.
Yes, that doesn't make sense for me. I was very shocked when he told me this.
Yeah. So if you could only get to enlightenment while a Buddha was here, that means for that 45-year window when the Buddha was here, that would be the only time you could get to enlightenment, right? So you can see, if you study his original teachings, you can see what did he teach and what he didn't teach as well. Because there's a lot of people who aren't studying the original teachings of the Buddha, and you're not interested in believing those people, but you're not interested in believing me either. That's why I make his teachings available for you guys, so you can see what did he actually teach. And then don't even believe that. Don't believe the books, right? You'd like to learn it, investigate it, examine it, and then reflect on it to independently verify it, and then practice it to see the truth for yourself. And that's how you'll know what are the true teachings. So you're going to hear many misunderstandings like this in the world. And these are just 9 of the most common ones. But what I've been doing all the way through this program is helping students to understand what are the actual teachings. But I kind of saved these for the end of the book for students to be able to learn. Okay. Don't see any other questions anywhere. All right. So what I'm going to do then, oh, you have a question? Yes, sir.
Could you explain what he did and didn't say about previous lives and next lives and all of that side of things?
Sure. So as I mentioned, none of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief, including the cycle of rebirth. You can actually independently verify this. Right now, people might be believing that they only have one life, but you don't have any evidence that there's actually one life, other than the fact that right now you can't remember your previous lives. But as you're lifting this pollution out of your mind, it's not uncommon for people to actually start have memories of their past lives. In fact, you might have already had these experiences. There's 17 different criteria that you can use in order to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. It's in volume 11, chapter 105 in our book series, but it's in chapter 105, volume 11 for a reason, because usually you need to work your way towards that to be able to build up to it. So when he was alive, what was ultimately documented is that he was teaching what was called samsara. This is the Pali word. And what people have been translating that to be is the cycle of rebirth. But a better way to think about this is the cycle of new existence, because there isn't anything that's actually being reborn. If you look at the way that he's talking about it, he's talking about a new body and a new mind every single time. And now that's a completely new being, right? So it's really the cycle of new existence. That would be a better way to actually talk about it rather than rebirth. So he talks about these 5 realms of existence, which can also be independently verified: the hell realm, the animal realm, the afflicted spirits, which are like ghosts, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. And he taught these things because it's true reality. It's actually what is occurring. And you might actually have interactions with beings in these realms, because oftentimes people think about the hell realm as being deep down in the core of the earth, the heavenly realm way up in the sky somewhere. In reality, these beings are all in the same time and space as us. Nobody's sending you to one of these different realms. It's based on the status of your mind at the time of death. Whatever level of pollution your mind has at that time, that is what determines whether there is rebirth or not, and what realm you're actually born into and what the condition is once you're in that realm. None of these are permanent. Hell is not permanent. Heaven is not permanent. There's no being that's sending you to those different places. You're in this continuous cycle, essentially cultivating wisdom to become a better and better being. And as you do, then your mind's getting closer and closer to enlightenment. So in those lower realms of hell, animal realm, afflicted spirits, you actually can't get to enlightenment from those realms because you can't cultivate your consciousness enough to be able to escape out of this cycle, because you can't cultivate enough wisdom. But those beings can get into a human existence or into an heavenly existence where they have the opportunity to train their mind to actually get to enlightenment. So getting into this human realm is the very best thing that could ever happen for you, because you could actually train your mind now to actually get to enlightenment. So it's a new existence every single time, and it's based on what's going on in your mind in terms of the level of pollution, which is determining whether there is rebirth or not. Because if you get to enlightenment, there is no rebirth in the cycle of rebirth. You're completely outside of that by that point. So if there's pollution in the mind at the time of death, there is rebirth. If there's no pollution, there isn't rebirth. And then if you're reborn, it's based on the level of pollution to determine which realm you're in and what is the condition that you experience once you're in that realm. So this is something that people need to learn and understand as part of their journey, but it's not something you normally learn right up front. I usually encourage people to set it to the side, because there's core central teachings that you need in order to be able to train your mind, and it's better to focus on those, because what happened in the past is in the past, and what may or may not happen in the future is in the future. It doesn't matter right now. So I encourage students to focus on the core central path. But ultimately, you do need to understand it, because as you're lifting the pollution out of your mind, some people can actually see these beings. It's possible to actually see them. In fact, some people, even without training their mind, they've seen a ghost, or they might have seen a heavenly being, or they might have interacted with a hell being. And if you didn't understand this is the way the world truly is, you could think you're going crazy in this situation. But if you understand this is normal, this is the way the world truly works, your mind can stay stable and steady in this situation. So some people can see these beings because they're all in the same time and space as us. Some people can actually communicate with these beings. You can actually hear them talking, right? And just like you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's talking a little bit loud and you can ignore that, you can do the same thing with these beings too, is you can just ignore it. But if you didn't understand that's the way the world truly is, you could think you're going crazy when you hear things that other people don't hear. So the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth because it's true, but he didn't teach it in order to guilt, shame, or fear you into anything at all. He's just teaching you that this is true reality. And as you're lifting this pollution out of your mind, you might see these beings, you might hear these beings, and you understand that this is normal. And now you can just continue on in your day without thinking that you're going crazy, essentially. So this is like at the heart of it. But there's other details that you would learn as part of your journey as well. But I suggest for people to just set it aside when they first get going on the path. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do then is just end by thanking you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. If you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that. This Wednesday, I'm going to be here teaching again at 9 a.m., where I'm going to just do meditation with students, and then I'm just going to open up to any and all questions that students have. I'm actually getting ready to take a trip on Sunday next week, a week from today. I'm actually leaving for 2 weeks. I'm going to India and Nepal to lead a retreat at the sites of the Buddha, the original sites, taking students around to see where he was born, where he got to enlightenment, where he delivered his first talk, where he died, and all these types of things. So on Sunday, I'm going to be leaving on Sunday morning. So for those of you guys that are online that normally attend classes, I'm going to be sending out an email and I'm going to be putting a Facebook post that is going to help you to be able to get access to recordings of the classes that you would have seen that I've taught in the past and have been recorded, because I'm not going to be here teaching live. Normally when I travel, I still zoom into the classroom and I still actually teach. But this particular trip to India, I'm not going to be teaching because I'm going to be traveling around so much that I'm not going to be able to ensure that I'm going to be at one specific place to be able to teach at a certain time. So I'm going to be sending out an email and post on our Facebook group so you guys can see the topics that I would have normally taught, and you guys can continue to finish out the program, because we're going to be restarting this program from the very beginning on January 4th. So if you guys would like to attend, I can get you plugged into that. You can see our website, you can see our bulletin board over there. You'll see lots of opportunities to be able to join into our community. In fact, on Friday, we have a social event where at 6 p.m. students come together and we either watch movies or play games. So it's kind of like a little party. We have music playing. We usually get out our popcorn machine. We make a bunch of popcorn. You get to meet a lot of people who are into wholesome things. So if you'd like to come, you or your friends, you're welcome to come here at 6 p.m. every Friday. It's called Temple Fun Night, where we come together and we just have a great time hanging out as a group. So there's plenty of opportunities for you guys to get involved in what we're doing and interact and learn these teachings. It's just for each individual to decide whether or not they would like to actually learn and practice these teachings. Because what the Buddha is doing is he's teaching you how to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. That's essentially what his teachings are. But what's hurting you is inside your own mind. It's not the outside world. Oftentimes people are trying to fix the outside world, and that's why you keep experiencing the same struggles over and over and over again. But if you start working on the real problem, which is inside one's own mind, that's where you actually see the real solution. So whatever you guys choose to do today, have a wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.